Alright guys, today we're going to be showing off the one major weakness that the brand new Super Mega Dragons have with the new Light and Darkness support. So, pretty much what it comes down to, the summon condition is pretty easy to get this bad boy out. You just get rid of Light End Dragon, Dark End Dragon, you summon the brand new 2 dragons, and you're going to combine them to make the ultimate card, right? Well, we're going to get a couple effects here first, but the most important thing is that you're going to be using the effects of Light End as well as the Dark End effect monsters, not the synchros here, because the summon requirement is just to banish the other card from the extra deck. It is technically any level 8 dragon monster, but we're using the Light End's effect over here, and it says during your main phase you get to fusion summon 1 fusion monster from your extra deck using monster from your hand or field as material. And then when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can make that card lose exactly 500 attack and defense, and then that opponent's monster loses 1500 attack. So basically, you get a huge advantage over your opponent when it comes to attacking. And then the Dark End has the ability to make it so you get to target one other attack versus monster on the field. This card loses 500, and then it gets to destroy it. So arguably, depending on the situation, one could be better than the other, but for the most part, Dark End would be like the superior target because you just get to get rid of things. Now, that is not a quick effect, so again, you wouldn't just want these to linger on the board, but this one is usually the card that you would target because the new fusion monster, this is the boss, and this is the one weak point your guys are about to see it here. And we're actually seeing another new archetype in the mix, and I was really excited to play Light and Darkness Dragon Lord, the super big bad boy over here, because it has a pretty good effect. I mean, it's literally like Light and Darkness Dragon, but stronger. So how it works is it's got 3400 attack and 3000 defense points, and it's got to be fusion summoned, so I don't believe you can get it out with its own effect at the very end here. But while it's face up on the field, it's also dark attribute, but it's just once per chain. Now that is the important part of the tag. When a spell or trap or a monster effect is activated as a quick effect, it loses 1000 attack and defense. So basically it gets to activate its effect 3 times, unless of course you boost up the stats. But remember, these are both players' effects that will be stopped. And then in the other part of the effect, if it's in its owner's possession is destroyed by the opponent's card, you get to target a dragon monster graveyard and re-special summon it. So you basically get to recover half the materials that you used to make it. And if you banish stuff, it's actually going to be good for this deck. So this is the one major weakness that the deck has. You activate any effect, and because it is a once per chain, this right here is its one major weakness. You just chain to it, and chain link 3, well, unfortunately, this card doesn't do anything anymore, and you just completely blocked out this mega card for the archetype. Now, true, it only takes 2 cards to make this, so maybe you can play a lot of different things that you could splash it in. But I was thinking just to make it a pure archetype, and then at the very end, once it's used 3 effects, you maybe then Book of Moon it, then reflip it back up, and then you'd be good to go. That's what I was originally thinking with this plan over here, but Cynthia has been cooking something up, and we'll see what the mix-up is. It's mostly chaos, and Bungus over here, shoutouts to this player, playing one of the new White Forest archetypes here that is brand new as well. So he's going to go and destroy it, and okay, so here is the important thing. Now, a lot of these effects will be activated, but its effects are negated, so it doesn't really matter here, but it's just, it has to at least attempt to go for the effect. So now he's going to activate effect of the Beware of the White Forest, so he's going to target a card that opponent controls and pop it. He needs to get rid of it now, and you are going to be bringing out this. This is kind of like the bread and butter of the archetype, because again, during your opponent's turn, you'd rather have them lose the stats, or if it's the very final thing, like it's at the end of the battle phase, main phase 2, in this situation, I think going for the dark one arguably would be better, because you just get to pop something. Now, keep in mind, there could be a bunch of negates as well. I'm going to mainly focus in on the Light and Darkness Dragon for this gameplay, but the White Forest is another new archetype, which I want to cover as well. But I wanted to actually build this deck, and unfortunately, I'm gonna be honest, I was quite disappointed with this, and the reason why I'm quite disappointed is it just has that one major problem that someone's gonna activate something in Chain Link 3, and then the whole archetype as a pure archetype, again, you can splash it in maybe something else, but as a pure archetype to just go for that like one card and then trying to GG your opponent, because I was thinking, well, oh, you just make your opponent no matter what go -3, that's like half their hand if you know, you went first and you made this card. That's still pretty solid overall, but remember, you can't decide what cards you're hitting, and again, if they can change something to it, well, you're just going to lose out on it. Now, against some decks, you could instantly win. Now, he goes ahead and makes Scar a Red Dragon Archfiend, instantly over here. He's also got Duality, so he gets to attribute a light or a dark, then he gets to go ahead and bring something else out, and then you can also banish it to then draw a card. It's a pretty easy condition. And then there's also the Scar Red Dragon Archfiend. Now, this is not a new card, but If this card was sent to the graveyard as synchro material for a dark monster, you get to pop everything that your opponent controls. So that's kind of cool over there. And there's also a Core of Chaos. Again, this is not a newer card. I'm just going to try to highlight some of the newer cards going from Bestial Dispater. And then also the Red Dragon Archfiend is going to be coming out. He's going to go ahead and say no to the draw. And then we have Bestial Dispater over there trying to go ahead and stop another card. But Baguska does Baguska things. Yeah, number 41. Such an annoying card sometimes to deal with, and we're seeing Super Star Slayer. That card has such a long name. He goes ahead and gets rid of that. And I would say, as far as this deck recovering off of just like, you know, 1 or 2 cards, is it possible over here? Well, let's see what the other player playing the White Force is going to do, and he's going to go ahead and have this card to make them all face down, and that's again activated instantly because if this card is special summon, it just gets its effect. So that can be either way. Obviously, when you synchro for it, you're going to get the effect of it. And then on top of that, Illusion and Spellcasters gain some extra stats, and they get to do double of the piercing damage. There's also a card called Chaos Beast, which I was like, what the heck is this? I don't think I've ever seen this thing before. But if any of the cards have been banished, it gains extra 1,000 attack. And then once per turn, you get to target one of your banished light or dark monsters, add it back to your hand. And then during the main phase, except the turn was sent to the graveyard, you can banish light and dark and then re-special summon the card. But more likely, that's not going to be going through. And pretty much, I would say this deck does definitely have the unfortunate side of like older Yu-Gi-Oh, whereas more modern Yu-Gi-Oh archetypes, they're just going to be spamming the board with a bunch of stuff. Now, obviously, you don't want to get 2 of these up on the board too, because I saw someone comment that, what did you just make 2 of these? No, do not ever, that's like going double Doom Cow Pass. That happened before, and what happens is the first one will then negate the second one, and then the other effect will go through. So you do not want that to happen. Do not make 2 of these. That would be very, very memes to do, unless you have some crazy idea that something else is going to be going on in between that. Do not make 2 of the brand new fusion monsters. Okay, that's very important. I mean, yeah, if you followed up with maybe like a Solemn, because what it would do is force your opponent to activate like double cards, and then if you followed up with a Solemn, your opponent probably loses at that point. Like, I would say, if you wanted to try to build this deck, because I wanted to try to build this deck, I was talking about it yesterday or the day before on my stream. I was like, dude, this deck actually seems like it could be kind of good. Not necessarily this Chaos version that Cynthia has actually built, but more so just making a deck all around just those 2 cards, and those, well, it's basically just the new card only, that just making the fusion and then playing kind of those Protect the President sort of decks. The one problem is, though, that going second with those Protect the President sort of decks, they fall very, very hard on their face when anything goes wrong, which is just kind of normal in Yu-Gi-Oh. But, you know, shoutouts to Bungus for playing something else new here. Again, I'll cover this archetype on its own. We'll go over all of their effects in another video here, but I kind of wanted just to highlight this deck. If anyone wants a deck profile, I'll mouse over the other one that did technically win here. But I think it just has one major flaw, and that is, again, in Chainlink 3, that if you get rid of it, it pretty much just GGs you out. Now, there are other cards, I'm just going to mouse over this build over here from Cynthia, but there are other cards that do boost up the stats, but you'd have to wait for it to dip down below that point, and then you would play cards that may be conjunctional or would require you to actually be maybe a losing position, like Necrofusion. Fantastic card. I like it a lot, and this card is actually pretty strong. I remember I was actually teching this in Shadal's at one point because you can just, you know, send some cards really early on, but just being able to just go for a surprise window on your opponent, that's like a GG, right? That's very, very powerful. So you could maybe mix this in. I was curious to know what you guys think about mixing it in other archetypes. What other archetypes would it be working well in? But there's another few support cards for this, which again, they can boost up the stats. You basically can get an additional 1,000, so you get basically 4 negates, and at 4 negates, if you were to open up with something like, let's say, Solemn, right? And I feel like this is what the deck would actually need to be successful. Making this card is not a big deal at all. You just run a bunch of allures, just run a bunch of trade-ins like Cynthia was over here. Just run a bunch of draw power cards, right? And then all you do is you make that card right here, which again, it inherently comes out with 3 negations. Then you run the Solemn, and then you're at a card with like 400 attack, which would arguably be bad. And then if you wanted to, you could play cards like Book of Moon, and then you could reset it, and then you could GG. So I guess the end board that would be relatively decent, if you could pull this off. Let's say that they do negate the card's effect like in the other instance there, and then when they go for the attack, you flip it face down, and then you would also still have to have the monster be not 3,000, or, well, it'd have to be 3,100 or more to obviously run over it. But let's say they negated the effects and then they also made it had 0, which is kind of common in the game, or they just lowered the attack low enough to the point where you can just have them attack into it, you book a moon, the targets don't change, it flips up, and it's got 3,000 defense, and then you have another set of 3 negates, and then you can win the next turn. So I think that that might be kind of the other route that you can go on and play it, but there's going to be so many different archetypes that has Chain Link 3, that's the major weakness of this deck. But anyways, that's gonna wrap it up. Let me know, guys, what you think of the brand new Light and Darkness Dragon boss monster. I'm kind of just disappointed that it has just one major flaw. But what else could we do to fix this? Let me know it down below. But if you guys enjoyed it, drop a like on it. If you're new, hit subscribe, turn the bell so you don't miss out on more Yu-Gi-Oh commentaries, and we'll be covering more archetypes very soon, as a bunch just came out.